So now this is part 2 of my logical defense of FBA, which is Foundational Black Americans. I really want to start at the top and let's go over the mentality of, I guess, African immigrants coming over to the United States of America. And of course, to do her right, I will link her TikTok video in my description. So let's go ahead and play this thing again.
But I want to help African Americans understand that Africans coming to the United States are immigrants, first and foremost. Then they are Nigerian or Senegalese or whatever country they're from. And then at some point, they are Black. But Africans don't put Black high up on their identity well as much as African Americans do. And that is for legitimate reasons on both ends. And so when an African is coming to the United States, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm an immigrant here. I have to do my best for myself and my family back home. The sacrifices that took for me to get here were no light work. Okay, so I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United States, it's the dominant culture, which is white American culture. And so Africans are going to instinctively ally themselves with the culture that's going to give them the most success. And it also doesn't help that for a long time, Africans are fed a very negative view of Black American culture, and that's its own propaganda. But because Africans are so conservative and they're coming to a country where Black Americans have been labeled as the antithesis to this conservative traditional family values, they have, if anything, more in common with Southern Baptist white racist people. But that aside, going back to identity markers, Black Americans put Black first and foremost, and then everything else goes below it. And so they're thinking when another Black people come to our country, they're going to want to integrate with us, the other Black people, because Black comes first. And they get quickly disappointed in realizing that for Africans, Black and the identity and that coming is not first. Their immigrant identity comes first, and then their country. And if anything, for us as Africans to feel like that's my brother, that's my brethren, or whatever, you have to come from the same tribe as us, because we have so many Black people around, we don't automatically pre-select for Black. But Black Americans don't have so many Black people around, have had to defend and protect their culture amidst a dominant white culture, and so they are already pre-select and are overprotective for Black. Where we put our identity markers and what we put first and what we prioritize are so different culturally because of our differences in trauma, realistically. And so it does make sense that Black Americans will be like, oh, my people, my brethren, come here. And African Americans, or Africans, coming to the United States are like, I'm just trying to make it here. It's a lot of work to immigrate to the United States. And so y'all can stay over there.
So I have to get straight to the point when it comes to this topic here. And for as much as people want to cry, complain, and gnash their teeth when it comes to the FBA delineation topic, you have to realize some things. And it's very necessary for this FBA delineation to take place, because you have to distinguish yourself from other melanated people groups, and you have to protect yourself from other melanated people groups. I say that because the term Black and African American, that's a no-go now because it's too vague. I say that because we all have the historical record fresh in our minds now. Okay, we know about the Hart-Celler Act. We know about the Congressional Black Caucus campaigning to get the immigration laws changed. Changed from what? Well, the United States used to favor immigration from all white countries. We know the Congressional Black Caucus campaigned and fought and had a lot of support for campaigning for immigrants from melanated countries to come over here. Now, when you plan something, it probably takes a decade or a generation to plan it. It probably takes another decade or generation to let it start its course. And it probably takes another decade or generation to see if it's a negative result or a positive result. Now, we have the historical record on this whole melanated immigration from Africa, the West Indies, Latin America, and elsewhere. So we see the results in us FBA, we need to make corrections in the worst way. So now we're going to turn our focus and attention to the African woman. Let it marinate into your mental as we go over this topic right here. All right. FBA delineation is necessary and crucial because FBA delineation is FBA distinguishing themselves from other melanated groups because they have to protect themselves from other melanated groups. All right. I say this because FBA delineation is tame compared to other melanated people groups coming into the United States. As a matter of fact, when it comes to FBA delineation, FBA has just started to delineate while other groups already been delineating from the 60s. You know, as soon as they come over here. So they're generations deep in delineating from us. Okay. So we're just now meeting that same energy, or meeting them at the rim, so to speak. That's a basketball term. All right. So let's go ahead and examine the woman's delineation and how it comes in threes. You know, she has 3 barriers that she subconsciously puts up when she interacts with FBA. And all of it is problematic to me. You know, I'm going to give a analogy later on, but let's go ahead and go into it. Now, she said when African immigrants come over here to the United States of America, she has the immigrant first mentality. Okay? So what does that mean? She's going to resonate and have an affinity with fresh off the boat Asians, fresh off the boat Europeans, fresh off the boat Indians, fresh off the boat Latinos, fresh off the boat Arabs, fresh off the boat Pacific Islanders before she looks at us. That's poisonous. That's divisive. That's whack. That's corny. And I can't even deal with someone like that. Okay. The second part or barrier that she subconsciously put up in her mind when dealing with us is her national identity. You have to be from the same nation. Okay, listen, I'm gonna give her some grace on that. That's understandable. You have to acknowledge that, hey, we are from different nations, all right? But that shouldn't stop us from getting things done. But evidently it does. And really, that's kind of backwards. That's that African post-Berlin Conference backwardsness right there. That colonized mentality. Because, I mean, your national identity should be above immigrant identity, man. But it is what it is, man. Let's chalk it up. That's an L that I see on that end. All right, now this is something that we're never, ever going to overcome. FBA, we're not going to overcome this. The third one was the tribal affiliation. I remember seeing a comment on YouTube underneath the topic of Africans and FBA. And some guy in Nigeria, he was like, hey, the Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yoruba, they would never, ever see FBA as equals. You know, they look at themselves as being above us. So let's go ahead and get into the analogy. And let's just say somebody wanted to come to your house, but they're going to walk to your house, you know, several blocks away. And on their way, they're going to go through a field. And the field has mud, sand, dirt, newly cut grass, etc. Now, when they reach your home, you look at their shoes. What you going to do? Well, you're either going to have them take them shoes off or risk having them come in and track up your floors, track up your carpets when they walking up the stairs and just making a mess of things. The residue is just filth all over your home and other it's just unsanitary. All right. So that's your choice right there. Take off your shoes or track up your home and have you foot the bill to clean up your own home. So that generation back in the 60s, who's really our aunts, uncles, fathers, mothers, grandfather, grandmother, they should have peeped this and had the immigrants take off their shoes, so to speak. AKA leave that tribalism, that stupid immigrant first mentality alone and act in accord with how we do things here. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Don't bring that garbage here. You see, those historical records in our mental as FBA, Okay, that's the equivalent of having these people keep their shoes on and track up your home. Now, you have to clean it up. You have to clean it up, and that's what the FBA delineation movement is. It's footing the bill and cleaning things up, because we have paid for it. You know, like we've had things that we represent. We represent and try to get things done, but again, all that residue in the form of, I guess, tethers, so to speak, they're impeding progress. So again, the delineation movement is us footing the bill and cleaning things up. All right. And I mentioned the word tether, so let's get into the whole tether, I guess, controversy right here. And Africans, y'all can't say nothing, man. Y'all been calling us akatas ever since the 60s. You know, how can you? You're not in a position to even talk about the word tether, man. And it doesn't even, well, let's go ahead and go into it right here. Oh yeah, and another thing, the African chick said that when her people come over, they'll rather align with the group that'll bring them the most success, and that's white people. So, you know, we can go somewhere else with that. That's definitely tether behavior. So let's go ahead and go into the tether controversy and get some clarification on the word tether. All right, so as you can see on the screenshot, a tether is a term used by FBA to describe African and or Caribbean immigrants who move to the U.S. for economic opportunity using the benefits of the American Negro civil rights struggle, while simultaneously disparaging the history, legacy, and lineage of the American or the Negro American movement. And the top right corner, the one on the top, says a black person who moved from Africa or the Caribbean to the United States and pretends to be FBA and FBA native to the country. Often they take anti-black, white supremacist viewpoints despite being black or melanated. And then the last one, an African, Caribbean, Black, British, Canadian / Canadian person who copies, imitates, and appropriates FBA culture so much that you can't even tell where they are from. Most of them live in the United States of America. So let's go ahead and go into the distorted version and let's see what they say about it. So, like I say, here's the confusion, and this is on the Urban Dictionary website, and it hadn't been taken down because, you know, they're being jackasses about this stuff right here. Coonish. And it says this is the people trying to change the meaning right here. They think they dictate stuff. They are, in essence, a tether. This is how they use the term. They say a term used by black identity xenophobic hate group known as FBA as a derogative for black immigrants in the United States. That's absolutely false right there. And then look at what they say. They say it's a slur used by ADOS and FBA cultists as a means to degrade and intimidate black immigrants from across the globe. That's not true either. And like I say right here, this is for anybody, you know, FBA and most definitely the immigrant class. You know, all right, so a tether is just a coonish sellout who's foreign or non-American or don't have that heritage of, you know, FBA heritage. And this is one thing that we have to be mindful of right here, because you don't want to use tether in the place of immigrant because they're not the same thing. Being an immigrant doesn't equate to being a tether. The tether just has an animus towards FBA. So, I mean, all immigrants are in no way tethers, but a tether is definitely an immigrant or somebody who's come from an immigrant background. Okay, and like you say, let's go back to the first part, the first definition here. You know, A tether is somebody who disparages the history, legacy, and lineage of FBA people and their movements and what they stand for. You know, all that, hey, where are you really from? Oh, you don't have any culture. And, you know, just like that Nigerian cat, you know, who was dressing like an 80s breakdancer, talking about what's your culture? What is your culture, nigga? Is it the basketball, nigga? You know, you're just stupid, man. So that's basically it right there. And let's move on to the next point, man. Hey, let's check out this video clip here.
Shit on them. You know what I mean? Like, I love my Pan-Africanist community, but I'm against the idea that you have to be a Pan-Africanist. Like, you must connect with No, you don't. Let's respect one another's experiences.
Yeah, of course.
And if you, through research in your history, feel more connected to the Native American experience, as a black man, I can't turn around to you and say, you're wrong. Do you know how much of my history I've learned in the past 3 months?
From African Americans?
Yeah, but from African Americans. But in the last 3 months, stuff that I just thought, oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm talking mind-blowing stuff. Do you know what I mean? About my history, I'm like, what the hell have I been... So how can I turn to someone who says, I believe this about my history and say, you're wrong? Like, I can't. I can't. I have to hear them out. I have to hear the... Do you understand?
I agree and I disagree with you. And the reason why I say I agree with you, yes, it's true, you don't have to be a Pan-Africanist because then it's almost like an arrogance of thinking, well, you must study Africa. You see what I'm trying to say? If you want to be black, you must study Africa. Then it's like, okay, so you're trying to say that this is the roots, these are the homes, this is the essence, come and study this. So you don't have to, because your experience could still make you learn about who you are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I get that, but where I disagree is, what I'm going to say might be a bit controversial. Where I disagree is... Actually, I'm not going to say what I want to say.
Okay.
Those of you who think you know what I'm going to say, leave it in the comments. I'm not going to say what I'm going to say.
What's the name of the horror movie that's out right now?
So that's taken from the Drazzy Show, and the link to that video will be in my description. So this is the King's monologue creator here. I don't know his real name, but just check out what he says right here in regards to our FBA lineage.
Because the reality is all black people are mixed up. That's the thing. All black people are mixed with black people. If you're black American and you think you're purely native and you've got no African, you're kidding yourself. If you're black American and you think you're purely African and you've got no native, you're probably kidding yourself as well. Like, if you're black American and you think you've got no black European, you're definitely kidding yourself. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you got a European surname that didn't come from slavery.
Johnson.
Okay, so the point is that black Americans. One of the reasons I'm very patient with them is they have, out of all of the black populations on the earth, they've been the most lied to. They're the most separated from their history. They're the most gaslit. So I am I'm very understanding. They're the ones who have been appropriated more than anyone as well. And I'm not even talking about other people globally. I'm talking about within their nation. Every time they create something, it's stripped, it's taken.
Now, I realize I say this often after every clip shown, but the link to that video will be in my description. Check out that in its entirety if you can. It's a real good one. Kings, he's schooling that boy. So let's go ahead and move forward. So we have now reached the portion of the video where I want to speak on the major flaw of Pan-Africanism. And to be honest with you, Pan-Africanism is really a theory. I say that because Pan-Africans like to ignore pertinent information when it comes to our lineage and heritage. Now, let's just speak about the facts right here. The facts that Pan-Africanists like to ignore that we're not going to do here is that, okay, divergence time leads to an ethnogenesis. You become something totally different after some time. And when it comes to FBA and, more importantly, West Indians, we are always on the same boat or in the same boat. When it comes to the slave narrative, FBA and West Indians fall into the same category. When it comes to this new, more expansive information, FBA and West Indians fall into the same category. Now, they're definitely under different entities, but the same concept and mix applies. Now, we have a three-way amalgamation. West Indians have a three-way amalgamation, and let's say South Americans, they have some too. Now, the percentage of Africans varies. I want to say West Indians, South Americans also, they probably have a higher percentage of Africans from the transatlantic slave trade than we do. But let me just go over the ethnic mix of all of us, and I'm talking about FBA now. So this is the ethnic or amalgamation that makes us when it comes to FBA. All right, so transatlantic slave trade, the pre-colonial Africans, they came over, they met people who were melanated, who were indigenous to this landmass. They met people who were Asiatic or Mongoloid, if you want to use that term. And they also met people who were a mixture between those two groups. Now, that's the indigenous aspect right there. There were a lot of melanated indigenous people already here. And the third set is the people who were expelled from Europe. These were the melanated original people of Europe who basically got conquered by these people who had high Yamnayan content, those pale Europeans who basically came from the Caucasus Mountains and that area around the Black Sea. Those people, they conquered Europe big time. I already have something dealing with this, and I have a couple of videos discussing this right here. So when you hear these, I guess, like these UK Africans and then these other Africans talking about some, nah, I'm not gonna do the accent, but they always be like, hey, them Americans, them Black Americans, they have white boy names and all that. Or they talk about West Indians too, they have white boy names and stuff. I'm gonna put that to rest right now, and that's very easy to do. And this is something that Pan-Africans, they don't even talk about. I don't even deal with Pan-Africans, but it's not about them. They have their own theory. They've already been compromised. Pan-Africans has already been compromised on a large scale. So let's go ahead and talk about the most famous part of what makes up our lineage and heritage, and that's the one that's surprisingly the least amount. That makes up the least amount of us right there. And we're going to talk about those Africans that came over during the transatlantic slave trade on what the landmass that we now know as the U.S. or United States. So let's go ahead and get into that part right there. All right, so I thought about it, and it only makes sense for me not to go in depth when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade, only because Pan-Africans and continental Africans and everybody and their mother knows about this thing around the world. But the interesting thing about it is that is the least relevant part of our heritage right there, only because what we now know of as the landmass that makes up the United States, they receive the least amount of slaves. So, and it's funny because I remember in the 90s growing up and early 2000s, people from continental Africa, they were like, hey, we didn't really know about this stuff that much, man. And I give you guys credit because y'all start doing your due diligence and digging deep and trying to take in the knowledge regarding the transatlantic slave trade. But you guys were like, hey, growing up, we weren't taught this in our curriculum in school, and nobody in our villages taught or spoke about this, so we didn't even know about it. And you guys will be right, because it was the earlier generations before us, before the FBA crowd, who spoke extensively and passionately about the transatlantic slave trade. Those were the earlier Pan-Africans, and they were going over and teaching Africans about this right here. But that's not the whole right there. That's only a part of us. That's 1/3 of us. There's 2/3 of us that are really more important, to be honest with you. And that's no diss or slight, or that's no hey, we have a desire to be disassociated from Africa and all that stuff. Nah, man, because genetically, yeah, you could say that, but ethnically and nationally and everything else, hey, we got 2/3 that kind of eats up that pre-colonial African population that came over here. So let's go ahead and speak about it. All right, so I'm gonna make this real quick. Let's talk about the indigenous melanated population here that predated the Asiatic or Mongoloid Native Americans that you guys know and love. All right, so I'm gonna be brief, and here's my first source right here. This is C.S. Raffinesque. He's a French guy, and he came over here and he had wrote in his journals the descriptions and the, I guess, how these people looked on the exterior. All right, and this book is called Atlantic Journal and Friends of Knowledge, in 8 numbers containing about 160 original articles and tracts on natural and historical sciences. All right, so we're on page 85. Let's scroll down a little bit, and it says The Primitive Black Nations of America by Professor C.S. Raffinesque. And in present day times, I've heard Pan-Africanists, after they come across this piece right here, his works, they want to claim that it's pseudo, and that's just stupid because he's only writing down what he saw. It can't be pseudo in any way. So listen, when I read this, it's kind of faded in some spots, so I'm gonna do the best I can, and I'll just read, the more important descriptors right here. So basically, let's drop down. Okay, he's talking about, he was writing about the origin of the Asiatic Negroes. So we know that that was an actual thing right there. And we have scientific proof. We have so much, anthropological proof on this stuff that, you can't, if you start doubting it, then that means you're ignorant. And a lot of Pan-Africanists, they're ignorant, man. So it says that, I demonstrated is that affinities or attributes of their languages with the African and Polynesian Negroes, as well as with the Hindus and Chinese, and renders it probable that all the Negroes originated in the southern slopes of the Himalaya mountains, as they did once exist all over India. He's not lying right there. South China, he's not lying right there. Japan, Persia, and Arabia, he's not lying in any of his claims right there. I have videos on this stuff right here. Okay, so he says, my second memoir was on the Negro or black nations found in America before Columbus, wherein I proved their existence and connection by languages with the Negroes of Africa and Polynesia. So he says these memoirs have been rewarded by the Learned Society of Geography with a gold medal of 100 francs, which was lately communicated to me by, I can't see that, but let's skip this part right here and let's drop down to right here. It says, to many, this fact of old black nations in America will be new, yet it is an important feature of American history, as well as the existence of primitive white nations. They're still more numerous to furnish a, God, I can't see this, man. Let me skip down, man, because it's faded. But let's look at number 1 right here. It says the ancient something of Haiti, represented as the nation of beast by the historical songs. So the number 2, the Californians of the Carib Islands, called Black Caribs, or something by others, are a black branch of Caribs. 3, the Arguachos of something, mentioned by something in the West Indies, quite black. All right, so as you can see, the black Auroras of Raleigh, all right, so he said that they're black or brown Negroes. Number 5, brown Negroes like the Hottentots. Number 6, in Brazil, brown Negroes with curly hair. Okay, number 7, the Negritas of something in something, where he say black or red Negroes. Number 8, those Papian called something blackish with Negro features. Okay, 9. Okay, I can't see that. It's too faded. Number 10, what I can make out is New California. Okay, blackish Negroes. Okay, 11, the black Indians met by the Spaniards in Louisiana in 1543. Okay, number 12, the moon-eyed Negroes and albinos destroyed. Okay, I can't see that, but okay, bro, it's telling you that right here. And I'm gonna move on from here. This is just a sample. I'll be more extensive about it in videos dedicated to the people of the Americas, the original melanated population of the Americas. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the more shocking mix of our three-way amalgamation. And that's the Europeans, the original melanated Europeans who were conquered and expelled from Europe and sent to the Americas. The landmass that we now know of as the United States of America, Canada, the West Indies, Central and South America. And FBA, West Indian, and even continental African. Write this down, remember it, and you Pan-Africanists, get that knowledge, weigh and balance it all to see if it's legit, and ride with it, man. Nobody's against you if you African, man. Kill that stupid narrative, man. All right? It's about gaining knowledge and going from there. Being truthful about this stuff. I have 3 sources right here, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's all about edification and gaining knowledge. So now, here's the book, Virginia's Colonial Soldiers by Lloyd DeWitt Bachstruck. I wanted to build up to this. I didn't want to showcase it now, but it's necessary in the climate that we're living in with all of the detractors and denigrators of FBA. So let's get into it. All right, so I'm on page 45, and of course it's talking about the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763. And here's the reference right here. So let's go ahead and go to page 53. Now you see it right here. It says, let me zoom in right quick. It says, return of the 2nd Company of Rangers commanded by Captain John Ashby. And here's the criteria that is given right here. Okay, so you know what you're looking at. Right here, underneath the bolded part, it says return, gave name, date of enlistment, size, the height in feet and inches, and then complexion, skin complexion, then age, the country they came from, and then their trade. So this is in reference to the names, the surnames, and the forenames, and that whole narrative that, hey, melanated people, they started their whole existence via the transatlantic slave trade. No. We're talking about the European aspect now. Okay, now it says Leonard Harper. Okay, that's his return name that he gave. Date of enlistment, okay, August 18th, 1755. He's 5'10". Okay, so his complexion, okay, he's a dark complected person, age 28. Okay, country, well, he's from Virginia right there. And then let's look at the other guy, Daniel Morgan. Okay, we focusing on complexion here. Sandy, okay, that can go either or. You can be a light-skinned dude or or a white guy. Okay, but then let's skip down. William Dodson. Okay, forename William, surname Dodson. Okay, brown complexion. Okay, let's drop down. James Fraser, dark complexion, Highlander. That's Scotland right there. Okay, Timothy Conway. Okay, brown complexion. He's Irish right there. Okay, Job Cooper. He's brown complected. He's from VA. Okay, Nathan Marr, dark complexion, Virginia. Thomas Howell, dark complexion, Virginia. Okay, Robert Goldsberry, dark complexion, Maryland. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop down to William Field right here. Okay, brown complexion, Irish. Okay, so John Henry Piper. Okay, he's brown complexion, he's Dutch. Samuel Farrell, dark complexion, Dutch. George Sanders, brown complexion, English. Richard Bolton, brown complexion, English. Okay, Thomas O'Kee, brown complexion, English. Okay, Robert Holman, brown complexion, English. All right. So, I mean, there's other brown complected people from the colonies that were born in the colonies, but I had to speak on that, I guess the foreign people that were coming over, expelled or that came over. So that's page 53. So let's go ahead and move on to page 58. And it says, muster roll of Troop of Light Horse Command by Captain Robert Stewart, May 1756 at Maidstone. Of course, enlisting officers, Captain Robert Stewart. Yeah, I can't see that. William Hughes and Colonel George Gordon. Roll, gave name, entry date, size, trade, complexion, and country. And let's just look at this. William Hughes, all right, dark complected. Okay, William Broughton, okay, ruddy complexion. Okay, John Winterbottom, brown complexion, England. Okay, so you see George Speke or Spake, whatever, brown, Virginia. Okay, Robert Tunstall, okay, ruddy, Yorkshire. So then we got James Buchanan, dark, Scotland. Robert Cornelius, dark, Virginia. I was about to say VA. So then let's go ahead and move to page 59 right here. So you see this guy, John Eleanor, okay, brown complexion, Germany. John Craig, brown complexion, Ireland. Okay, John Huff, swarthy complexion, Maryland. Okay, John Burns, ruddy, Ireland. Now, let me go ahead and get some foreign-born people here. Okay, so I already got Thomas Thompson. Okay, ruddy. Okay, he's from Scotland. Okay, James Govan, brown complexion, England. Okay, William Lynn, dark complexion, Ireland. Okay, let's get this guy, George Salliser, dark complexion, Holland. Okay, David Glendenning, brown complexion, Scotland. Okay, John Smurver, okay, dark complexion, Germany. John Larbuck, brown complexion, Germany. Okay, Finley McKay, brown complexion, Scotland. Samuel Baxter, brown complexion, England. Okay, John Galting, brown complexion, Ireland. John Brown, okay, brown complexion, England. Okay, Thomas Shepard, brown complexion, England. William Marshall, brown complexion, England. Okay, so let's go ahead and move down. Muster roll of Captain David Bell's company at Maidstone, May 12, 1756. I know it says 12 May 1756. Okay, so we have, of course, okay, the name that they give, the date entertained or enlisted, age, size, which is height, trade, complexion, and country. Okay, so we got David Collins. Okay, he's fair complected, Ireland. Okay, Timothy Sullivan, brown complected, Ireland. William Smith, brown complexion, England. Okay, Robert Bassett, brown complexion, England. Okay, so we got this dude, Edward Austin, fair complexion, England. Okay, James Thompson, brown complexion, England. Peter Mullen, brown, Ireland. Okay, William Cuthbert, brown, Scotland. Okay, John Fernmore, okay, fair complexion, England. Okay, all right, so let's look at Edward Childs, fair complexion, England. Okay, John Hooper, Okay, brown complexion, England. Okay. Daniel Stanley, dark complexion, Ireland. Okay. Okay, so we got then the rest of these three from England right here. This guy Henry, Richard, and James Hooper. Okay, brown complexion, brown, England. Okay, so that's about it right there. And of course, you see down below, I'm gonna skip that part. Okay, so we're done with Virginia's colonial soldiers. Let's go ahead and move on to another book. So let's go ahead and shift over to Muster Rolls of New York Provincial Troops, 1755 to 1764. And let's see what we have. So let's go ahead and go to page 60 here. And of course, on the left hand side, you have the privateers, or their name, the people's name, their height, their age. And then on the right hand side, you have where they were born, their trade, and then their complexion right there. And then of course their enlistment date. And one thing I want to point out before I go, like some people, they may think that this is the hair color when it talks about complexion, but there's something here, like when you look at the complexion, it may have like yellow. That's basically yellow right there. Like when you do a little bit of research and go on like Wiktionary, it may have yellow. Then it says it's an alternative form of yaller. And when you look up yaller, it says that it's a pronunciation spelling of yellow and representing the southern U.S. English right there. Then it has something below that says high yaller. And when you click on that and it says high yaller, which is high yellow, it says a light-skinned black person. So, I mean, it is what it is. But let's go ahead and delve into this. Okay, so George Crew. Okay, he's from Germany and complexion is brown. Okay, so this guy Matthias Salik. Okay, he's German also. Fair complexion. So it can go either way. He could be a pale white person, or he could be a borderline, very, very light-skinned black person. Okay, that's neither here or there. Let's just say he's white. Okay, so this guy Peter Tucker. Okay, all right, let's skip him. John Smalling, England. Okay, let's just say he's fair too. Okay, Ned Musty. Okay, he's a high yellow guy. All right, so let's go ahead and go to what's this? Valentin Havener. Okay, German, brown. Okay, Peter Kraus, fair. Stephen Musty, yellow, high yellow. Henry Dawson, he's English, brown complexion. Okay, let's go ahead and go to Ned Ward. Okay, he's black complexion. Okay, all right, so this is man, I wish I had this thing right, but let's just go ahead and see Weaver. Okay, Dan Townsend. Okay, he's Negro complexion. Isaac Nation. Okay, he's black complexion. John Wright. Okay, he's black complexion. All right, sandy complexion. All right, so let's go to James Titus. Okay, he's English. He's brown complexion. Okay, so John Valence. Okay, brown complexion. All right, Smith Rawlin down at the bottom. Okay, he's fair complexion. All right, so we're done with that part. Let's go to page 62 and 63. Okay, so the first person, Ephraim Kosaboom. Okay, I want to say that this is Queens County. Okay, he's fair complexion. All right, so the third person, Thomas White. Okay, Westchester. He's brown complexion. So we got John Springer, Albany. All right, dark complexion. Okay, so these are people from Connecticut, I guess. All right, so we want to get these foreigners right here. All right, so let's go to Dennis Field. Let's drop down. All right, he's Irish, sailor, brown complexion. Okay, let's get. Okay, where's the foreigners? We want the foreigners. But there's a lot of. All right, you can pause that and look at it on your own time, but just look at it. The main point is the forenames and surnames. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go to page 64 and 65. Okay, this guy, John Mao. Okay, he's Connecticut born, dark complexion. Okay, so let's go to Patrick Carrigan. Okay, so he's Irish right there. He's brown complexion. Okay. All right, so Anthony Havens, Suffolk. Okay. So it says his complexion is Indian. All right. So we know that that's not a hair complexion or hair color. It's a skin complexion. Okay. So let's go to this guy. The third name, Ham Blackwad. Okay. So he's German and he's brown. Okay. Philip Hullet. Okay. He's Irish. He's a mariner. He's brown complexion. And then the guy, Ham Blackwad, he's German and he's the same complexion. Ditto, dio. Okay, so let's go to. All right, here's a guy from France. I want to say Edward Cornell. Okay, man, I wish I had this lined up better. I apologize for that because it's difficult to try to line these names up with the other page. But you got somebody who's French and they're a weaver and they're brown complexion. So I want to say that's John Larab because that seems French right there. Okay, so here's another person. Okay, he's German, so let's just say John Coleman or Harmon Lower. That's okay, brown complexion also. All right, so I know some people not convinced still, but that's cool. Let's go to another source right here. So what you're looking at before you is the Pennsylvania Gazette. This is the brainchild or works of Benjamin Franklin, or Ben Franklin to be short. The date of this article is July 17th, 1746, and of course he talks about a wide range of things in here, and he mostly posts things for sale, runaway animals, runaway servants, runaway slaves, etc. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the important piece right here. And from Virginia's colonial soldiers and the muster roll of New York provincial troops, a lot of people, they can say, hey man, that complexion right there, that's not skin complexion, that's in reference to the hair and all that. All right, okay, I can give you that. Okay, actually no, I can't give you that, and I'm gonna use the Pennsylvania Gazette, to cut that notion off. Okay, kill that whole idea, the subterfuge. All right, let's look at this right here. Okay, Philadelphia, July 17th, 1746. Okay, all right, he says, runaway, the 7th Infantry from Samuel Ralston of White Clay Creek, 100 Newcastle, an Irish servant lad about 17 years of age named Nicholas M. Entire. Okay, so he's short and well fed or well set, a brown complexion, okay, black bushy hair, he's pock marked, okay, short nose, and has one of his 4 teeth broke. Okay, so yeah, one of his top teeth in the front chipped. And then it goes into what he was wearing right there. Now you can't get any more descriptive than that. Okay, brown complexion, okay, black bushy hair. All right, so let's go to the next one. So let's go ahead and look at the December 2nd, 1746 edition of the Pennsylvania Gazette, and I'm gonna zoom in right here. So let's look at this part. Philadelphia, December 2nd, 1746. Deserted the 18th Infantry from Captain Beverly Robinson's company of foot. Okay, so you can see this name right here, James Shaw, an Irishman, about 5'4" high, a dark complexion, full-faced, pock-ridden. Okay, 23 years old. Okay, Philip Radman, an Irishman, about 5'3". Okay, has brown eyebrows, a ruddy face, and ruddy is kind of, a lot of people think it's scarlet red, but it's kind of brownish red. Okay, a scar on the upper lip. Okay, William Harris, born in Maryland, about 5'8" high, of a light complexion. Okay, you can take it how you want to. Okay, what's this? Hugh Tully, an Irishman, about 5'8" high, lawyer by trade, of a light brown complexion. Okay. All right, so that's about it with that one. Let's go to the next one. So we have the March 15th edition, 1747 to 48. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the important parts right here. So let's go ahead and zoom in on the right side. And then as you see, it says Philadelphia, of course, March 15th, 1747 to 1748. All right, so this guy, he's a runaway from the subscriber on Sunday. I know it looks like an F, but back then that's an S right there. The 5th Infantry, a servant man named Anthony Wrights. He's a Dutchman, about 19 or 20 years of age, of a dark brown complexion. Hey man, I wonder if that's his hair complexion in reality. That's what the white folks gonna say, or the Pan-Africanists or the Latinos. Look at what it says. Has very black eyes and hair. Okay, so is there some discrepancy here? No, it's not. Okay, is a well-set fellow, about 5 feet high, and talks pretty good English. All right. He took with him his indentures and has a year and a half to serve. Okay, that's about it right there. Dark brown complexion, a Dutchman, black hair. Matter of fact, yeah, very black hair. Okay, and his name was Anthony Wrights, the surname and forename. Keep that in mind. So we can definitely move on from here. So now we're on to the April 16th, 1748 edition of the Pennsylvania Gazette. And we're going to do something a little bit more different. We're going to compare and contrast these descriptions of these runaway servants and or slaves right here. Okay, so the first one I want to go over is this one in the middle right here. I'm going to zoom in right quick. Got stuff popping up. All right, so let me go ahead and zoom in. All right, it says, run away from the ship Rachel of London. Okay, Sham Randolph, commander, 5 seamen. Okay, Thomas Robson, who is a well-set man, about 5'6" high, brown complexion, and had on, when he went away, a blue duffel waistcoat. Okay, canvas trousers, a cap or wig, and a hat. Okay, Joseph Smith. Okay, he's about 5'7" high, brown complexion, and had on a blue something waistcoat. Okay, what's this? Robin. I can't read. Jeffers. All right. A little man, thin man, about 5 inches high, brown complexion, and had on a blue something. Okay, where's his own black hair? All right, so there's that dichotomy right there. Brown complexion. All right, he has black hair, so we know that the complexion is not talking about hair. Come on. All right, Henry. Is that Jones? Okay, a tall, well-set man, about 5 feet 8 inches high, swarthy complexion. Okay, swarthy is brown, folks, just in case you don't know. All right, and had on a blue waistcoat, canvas trousers, a brown bob wig, and a hat. Okay, And James Boyle, a tall, slender lad about 5 feet 9 inches high. All right, whoever secures them. Okay, now it's a bunch of brothers on here. They're dark-skinned people right here, brown-skinned people. All right, so let's go ahead and look up right underneath that. Okay, run away from the 3rd Infantry at night from Jonathan Ingham of, okay, Pennsylvania. Okay, a Negro man named Cephas or Safar of Middle. Okay, so we don't know what he was. They just label him as Negro. They didn't say his, place of origin. So he could have been African or native, He could have been an indigenous melanated person from the Americas, or he could have been one that came over via the slave trade, All right, so let's go ahead and look to the right of us. Okay, a runaway from Samuel Lippincott of Northampton. Okay, so who's this person? An Irish servant maid named Mary Muckleroy of a middle stature. Okay, had on when she went away a blue. So this could have been a white woman right here, a white Irish person. Okay, and yeah, that is a thing. Can't assume that they all are white, because what do we have here? Let's go back to it. Runaway from ship Rachel, okay, of London. Okay, now this ship is coming from London right here. Go ahead. Let's see, this guy Thomas Robson. Okay, forename, surname, remember that. Okay, brown complexion. All right. Okay, Joseph Smith. Okay, brown complexion. Okay, and a brown wig. All right, so I think this is Robin Jeffers. Okay, brown complexion, black hair. That's his own hair. So that's really a wrap on this particular edition right here. I do have one more, so let's go ahead and examine that. All right, so we do have the last one that I want to play. This is the January 8th, 1751 edition of the Pennsylvania Gazette. We're going to compare and contrast again, and it says, all right, so I want to look at the first runaway here, and up top it says that there was a runaway on December 30th, and he's living in the Paxton Township, Lancaster County. All right, he's a servant man named Pritchard. All right, so he's born in Wales, and he was brought up in Ireland. Okay, middle size. Okay, well set, of a fresh complexion. Hey, let's be real. We really don't know what this fresh complexion was or is. It could be a light-skinned, melanated person, that high yellow, or it could be a white person, a Caucasian. To make that tie in by using modern terminology. All right, so let's go ahead and peer at the post or excerpt below, and it says 4 pistols reward. Okay, so the runaway on the 13th from the subscriber, can't see that, but it says, okay, in Chester County, Pennsylvania, an Irish servant man named James Ward of a middle stature, about 23 years of age, dark complexion, down look, sullen countenance, hardly look a man in the face, his beard and eyebrows thick, black, his hair cut off, okay, and has fine linen caps. Okay, so what's the main takeaway from this? Okay, first of all, he's an Irish servant man. His name is James Ward. Okay, he has a dark complexion. All right, is it talking about his hair? Because I know that's what y'all want to say. Well, guess what? His hair was cut off. So what is it talking about now? Huh? All right, so I'm done with this part. We're done with the Pennsylvania Gazette. I have a ton of these, but this is the sample, because I didn't really want to get into this thing right now, but all this FBA talk, and then you got Pan-Africanists talking about some, hey man, you guys are strictly pre-colonial Africans that came over via the slave trade. All that indigenous talk, no, that's just you guys being insecure and trying to hop on other people's legacy and everything, not knowing that, you know, you're just using 1/3 of our heritage or lineage, and you're attributing that 1/3 to being 100%. You're not even talking about the other 2/3 of what makes up the average FBA person. But then you want to denigrate the last names and forenames. And I'm talking to Africans right now, but let me veer over to these West Indians. You guys, you fall under the same category that we do. You know, us in the Americas, we all have that triple amalgamation when it comes to our heritage and lineage and everything. When we fill out or go into our genealogy, you will definitely see and encounter people who are indigenous to whatever landmass you're in. Whatever landmass you are on. So let's just be for real right here. I say that because you have to acknowledge the indigenous natives of your land who are melanated. You have to acknowledge the pre-colonial Africans who came over via the slave trade. They were melanated. And you also have to acknowledge those melanated Europeans who came over via expulsion or just looking for a better opportunity. All of that came before 1774 in the United States. And like I say, the West Indians out there, you guys have to get that brainwashing out of your system. You have to get your mind right, because everything that applies to FBA applies to you guys too. You guys have that three-way amalgamation. And your fight is not against the United States government. That's our fight right there. Your fight is against your former colonial overlords in Europe. Okay? So there's some Africans that I really respect. There's some West Indians that I really respect because they're not trying to undermine. Dr. Maria Charles, she's one of them. She's in the UK, but she's West Indian heritage. You know, that's her heritage right there. And I know what West Indians, you know, her heritage is in the West Indies, but she's part of those West Indians who family were conquered and expelled to the islands, okay? And then you have was it the King's Monologue? He's a post-colonial 54 country African nation. Really, to be specific, he's a Nigerian Brit, or the British of Nigerian heritage, and he knows all this stuff that I'm saying. He has basically he has all these records. He has way more than I do, and he's in the UK, so he has access to stuff that I don't have access to because I'm in the United States. So, but he's not a Pan-Africanist, and you know, because you're not a Pan-Africanist doesn't mean you hate Africans, man. It just means that, you know, we don't have all that foolishness built up within us. We don't neglect and ignore factual information, you know, and we don't attribute everything to just Africa. You know, like hip hop, we're not gonna say, oh man, these tribes right here, they was doing no. That's our thing. We have agency over us, man. So this is a post-production edit, and I forgot to include the Saint's channel. Here's the screenshot to his channel, and he's a continental African living in Africa still, and everything that I speak of he knows already, and he teaches on his platform. So check it out if you want to. Thanks. So let's resume. So gotta respect. It's just respect, man. So I think I'm pretty much done here. I know I'll probably get criticized over this, and you know, some people, the ignorant people, gonna say it's pseudo and all that stuff, but hey man, this is easily verifiable right here. I mean, is Ben Franklin a fool? Is he dumb to you guys? I mean, he's a well-respected person over here and abroad. So, hey, observations concerning the increase of mankind or something like that, I have that document, but yeah, I'll go in depth later on to one dedicated to this. But you guys, thanks for listening in, and research everything I'm saying. Just don't take my word for it. You know, be research minded. Be somebody who like to verify everything before they settle on something. All right, guys, that's it for this video presentation here. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.